So what I'd like to do in this video is show you the necessary steps for configuring the expense management functionality in Enterprise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log back in to Enterprise, and I'm going to use my Demo1 user with my password of Demo1 user, same as I have with all the other videos. And then you need to go up here into Settings. Once you're in Settings, you'll go here to Expenses. And there's a couple of things that you need to do. So what you'll do is you will go in and you will create a dollar value that you pay per mile or per kilometer for your organization when you are doing a mileage-based reimbursement for vehicle costs. So that way, what this allows you to do is it allows you to have employees putting through the expense app their mileage and then getting reimbursed at this rate for that mileage. So you can also put in a variable rate threshold. So you can say when they hit this threshold, when they hit this number of miles, then the rate changes to the variable rate here above the threshold. And then you can also specify here what the distance unit is, whether it's kilometers or miles, of course, depending on whether or not you're running on imperial or metric systems. And then what you need to do is you need to go in and you configure a record for each of the users that you set up in Enterprise. So in this example, you'll see that our Demo1 user has been set up, and we've configured the system so that the Demo1 user has expenses that are employee paid and expenses that are company paid. So you have two different scenarios. One for when the employee is processing the expenses and they're paying them themselves and then getting reimbursed for the expenses, and another one where the company is paying the expenses and the employee is recording the corresponding documentation. To add a new record in here, it's very, very simple. You simply click here on the plus key, and that will allow you to then specify the Enterprise user that you've already created in your users in Enterprise, and we've shown you how to do that in a separate session. So you pick your user. In this case, I'm going to say Demo1. Now it's just warning me that the current entry already exists, and that's okay. You then specify the payment type. In this case, I'm going to say it's employee paid. So you'll select the vendor record that you've set up for that employee that you use to pay them for their expenses. So I select that, and then you nominate who inside the organization is the person that is responsible for approving their expenses. And in our scenario, we set it up so that Demo User 2 is responsible for approving their expenses. You can also specify a default expense account that you want their expenses to go to. So if I go and start typing expenses, you can see I've got all of these accounts, and I'm going to choose my employee expense account. You can also nominate a default cost center that you want to have used in the system. So I could say the default cost center is administration. The secondary cost center is DEP2, and the third cost center, fourth cost center, and fifth cost center are all unspecified. Now it's just telling you those cost centers are going to be saved when you insert the new row. What you're also able to do is override the distance rate that you're actually paying a person for their mileage. Remember, up in the top here we set the default mileage rate, but you can say when this person gets paid their mileage, maybe they're getting paid 35 cents per kilometer. Okay, you can also specify that that's a variable rate, and you can say when they hit 500 kilometers, every kilometer over and above that, they're actually going to get paid 40 cents. And so I hit save, and again that information is put in here, and then when all that's good and I'm happy with that, I simply click the save button, and then that will create that record for that user. I get the notification that the mileage rate has been saved successfully and that the user expense has been inserted successfully. So that's it. My user is now set up, and they can go in and they can start entering in expenses. But now what about the expense categories? Well, the expense categories are set up across here in the item matrix. So what you do in the item matrix is you can see we have a number of these entries in our item matrix which are flagged as either expense or mileage expense. So if I want to create a new expense, so let's say for example my employees are putting through expense claims for their mobile phone costs, I would simply click here on the plus key. I go in and I tell the system that this is going to be an expense. The code will be created automatically for you. I give it a description here, so I'll say mobile phone costs. And then what I can also do is I can specify what is the GST or VAT code in this particular instance. And so in this case I'll select E2, and the exempt VAT code, I'm going to say X1 for exempt input. Now again, these of course are based on the localization that you're utilizing with your SAP Business One. And then you can actually have this GL code specified here as well. So I'm going to go in here into expenses, or I can actually see if I've got an account here for telephone expenses. So there we go. So there's my telephone expense code, and my cost center, in this case I'll say the default is administration, and then I hit save. And so now people inside your organization are able to go ahead and start recording their expenses against their mobile phone costs. And that's pretty much it. You've now gone through all the necessary steps to set up the expense management functionality and allow your users to start working with the expense app, and to allow them to start putting through those expenses and having them paid as part of your normal expense management processes with SAP Business One.